What can be better at especially hot summer than playing a video game about an ocean life? Well, actually take a swim in the water yourself, but we don't talk about it. Today I want to leave a review about a fun, colorful, yet sometimes gruesome game, Another Crab's Treasure. Of course you saw the title. As always, we'll answer the question who would enjoy this game, but also talk without spoilers about its Souls-likeness and clever story with many twists. So let's dive in. You're playing as a hermit crab krill who has been robbed of his shell house by weird-looking loan shark. The shell is kind of everything you have, so you want to return it. And you go from your safe harbor to the reef. Krill is a naive and introverted guy who lived his life alone far from big cities and other underwater people. On the journey, Krill very quickly understands that life in the ocean is different, starting with the currency. Now it's not a hard kelp, it's microplastics. And others are kind of obsessed with getting richer and digging more junk. I don't want to tell details about the plot because I don't want to spoil plot twists, so I'm going to tell my impressions and not so spoilery bits. Let's start with dialogues. I very much enjoy them. Dialogues contain many puns about ocean and underwater life, but it's not the only thing they have. People who wrote dialogues made them and the story as a whole funny and clever. And there are many sea people to talk to beside the story. You can talk to, for example, crabs in the city who just tell you about their life, their sea urchin or whatever he is, workers and other homeless crabs, and so on. And I can tell you with 100% confidence you won't know where the story is going and who will be the last boss. This game is longer than it seems, and major twists and turns are so unpredictable that it's kind of amazing. I remember when I finished my business in Slack-Tide, I was like, well, it was a good game, a bit small, but still. And then it continued. And I was like, wait, there's more? And then, after a while, before beating the major boss, I was prepared to finish the game, but there still was more. And I was like, are you kidding me? What else does this game have? But the final ending didn't disappoint. Next, let's talk about characters. Character design is on top. The game has one of the coolest character designs in my opinion. First of all, look at Nima. She is not only the nicest person in the reef, she has the nicest look. Simple, but it feels just right in this world. You don't even register at first that she has an orange peel at her head and wrapping of a silica gel pouch or whatever it calls as her clothes. And red color of her mouth thingies looks like a lipstick. And this coolness in design applies to other characters, enemies, and even objects. Like developers sat down and asked, what can this object be in the ocean, or what can it tell? And then they created. Lobsters became knights, toilet brush became a fancy decoration, and wrapping from ketchup became a good-looking flag. I really like how cleverly developers implemented usual stuff into the game. As for characters' motivation, well, some of them are a bit one note, but they are interesting enough for their purpose. The scholar will search, the knight will fight, Nemo will be hearty, and so on. Next are locations. Not gonna lie, I like Slack-Tide and New Carcinia the most because of their bright radiant colors and more cheerful side. But all locations are beautiful in their way. They differ much, so you can't confuse them with each other. There is the grove that looks like a grove, sands in between which are similar to a dune, bleached part, industrial district, and so on. I was fascinated with the quantity of different locations and with their unique richness. What I mean by that is not only different landscape, but also different enemies and puzzles. Besides that, some locations also have those parts where you can get only after some upgrade or stuff. And before we talk about gameplay mechanics, I want to briefly talk about music. My favorite is Slack-Tide's 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, do, 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 do. But all the music in the game is great, as you can imagine. The game has many interesting game mechanics. The main and most unique to the game is shells. Krill can get inside different objects like tin cans, bottle caps, coconuts, and others. Explore and be amazed. Shells have their attributes, their health, defense, and weight. When you block, you hide inside the shell and it gets damaged instead of you. Weight matters for the balance. An enemy can lose balance and take more damage after that, but it's much better described in the game, so just go play it. Also, shells have a spell. Spell you will unlock as story progresses. They differ depending on their nature. For example, my favorite soda can create some bubbles which attack nearby enemy in somewhat long range. There are also shells that heal, distract, make projectiles, and so on. While playing, you can find stowaways. They work like trinkets which you can stick to your shell, and so if the shell is broken, you lose the benefits from them. Some of stowaways work without shell though, but it depends on their type. Several of them give you stats like bonus resistance, attack, and so on, but some change the percentage of umami you get from the attack or increase attack by decreasing umami attack, and so on. I'd say that some of these trinkets are stronger than others, but it mostly depends on your build and playstyle. And maybe for some situations you prefer special stowaways. It's up to you. Next you have the fork, it's your primary weapon. It can be upgraded in the smithy. And Krill can use adaptations, unique abilities which you will get after defeating some bosses. These abilities will make your life easier and give you the access to some parts of locations. And there are Krill's level and talent tree. At the start, Krill has stats which can be upgraded when you level up. After some time, you will get an access to the talent tree which can give you some interesting abilities. Now let's talk about a fighting system. I must say several things before continue. First is, I have never played Demon's Souls or Souls-like games, so I might mix up some terminology. Second, I started playing games before we started to call everything something like. Souls-like, BG3-like, Tetris-like or whatever. A game is a game, and I think we shouldn't simplify something just because it uses some of the mechanics which have been used in other games. With all that said, I can understand why we want to simply put something into some category and don't think much about it. Anyway, when you die in the game, you lose all your microplastics and shell and respawn at the last autosave point or near the boss. You will get your microplastics and shell back if you successfully return to your watery grave. In some ways, this makes you choose the shell you want after a respawn, especially when beating bosses. All enemies have several movements and their special attack pattern, so you can learn when to block and when to evade and when to just run. Bosses are much harder than other usual enemies, so you shouldn't expect to beat them in the first try, though you definitely can. I killed a few with the first try and I spent hours beating others. Don't become upset, learn bosses' attacks and try again, or return after an upgrade. In the fight you can use a focus mechanic which puts your enemy in the center and you start to strafe around it. Walk like a crab if you want. For me, it really helped with bosses, but when I needed to swap shells, I turned it off because I needed to see a field. So it's a great thing to remember and use when needed, but of course you do you. Next, I want to say a few words about a new Game Plus, and I don't know where to start. It feels different. It's much harder. You get your upgraded fork and all talents and almost all adaptations at the start, but if you forgot the basics, like I did, the first boss will make you scream, like I did. Bosses have additional mechanics, so fighting them won't be as easy as earlier. And some enemies are different. You'll see some from the Grove in Slugtide, for example. I was furious when the archer several times threw me off the platforms in the castle. And in the new Game Plus, you can get more place for your stowaways and craft sigils that can make your life better or worse. Well, I think that's all I wanted to say, even though I didn't say anything about skins and Easter eggs and many other things. But you'll find them all by yourself. So next are pros and cons. Pros. Unique and interesting story. Not many games want to talk about crabs and underwater life and in such a clever way. Unpredictable plot twists. There are so many of them, so it deserves a separate mention. Creative character and environment design. Great looks and sound. Many different mechanics. Additional difficulty of a new Game Plus for those who dare. Cons. If you are easily annoyed by environmental token media, you might be annoyed by this game. When respawning after falling off, enemies can kill you before you can do anything. For me, it felt like too big of a difference in the difficulty between a usual enemy and a boss. At the end, I want to say that I very much enjoy this game. It instantly made me invested into the story with funny and clever dialogues, made me angry when I stupidly died and couldn't defeat the boss with a couple of tries, made me gasp several times when the story turned another time, and made me appreciate and celebrate every win. So I think this is a great game for people who love Souls-like, or if you're like me and haven't played Souls-like before, people who like challenge, who don't give up easily, and like to try different builds for different problems. But this game is also for you if you like a good story and a colorful world. Just don't expect it to be too easy. Let me know in the comments, did you play the game? Do you agree with my thoughts? And anyway, thanks for watching and have a nice day.